so many earphones have been called AirPod killers that it's become something of a cliche at this point.
And Jabra's consistently been putting out great but underrated products recently. So do their latest Jabra Elite 85Ts qualify as the closest thing to AirPods Pro killers that we've seen? Stick around for a real conversation.
Goedendag, we are DHRME. Did he really mean encyclopedia?
Apple products have always been the go-to for great microphone quality, and the AirPods Pro are no exception here. So as a fuckman with an iPhone, the AirPods are my pick. But Jabra comes from the business of audio equipment for work use cases.
Yeah.
And their Elite 85Ts live up to their legacy. Here's a microphone quality test we did, but if you want to skip the audio samples and jump straight to our conclusion, then skip forward to this timestamp.
Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3.
So in quiet conditions, you cannot go wrong with either of these earbuds. They do perfectly well in terms of volume and clarity. Although if I needed to give it to one of them, it would be the AirPods, because the Jabras just felt like they were a tad bit less loud, but really the difference is indistinguishable. So you can go with both and rest assured they'll be fine in quiet conditions. Now if we move to the cafe environment, what we see there is very interesting, because the AirPods do a lot better job in suppressing the background noise, whereas Jabra is still good. Don't get me wrong, they're still clear. Only thing is you hear that cafe noise in the background a little bit more. And then the tables turn when we go into windy conditions, because the AirPods don't really do that great with wind. Not sure why. They were on full noise cancelling, but they're just not that good. The wind would disrupt the clarity of the voice many times. Whereas on the Jabras, they did a lot better job. The clarity was sustained and you could hear the other person quite consistently throughout the conversation. The Jabras aren't perfect in wind, you still hear it, and it still can be disruptive now and then, but if you had to pick one of them to use in windy conditions, go with the Jabras.
So a satisfied fuckman not only gets good audio quality, but also great controls on device. And both these devices do quite well here. So the AirPods give you the basics. You can press once to answer or end a call, and long press to decline it. You can also switch between noise cancelling, transparency, and noise cancelling off. And you can of course summon Siri depending on how you set your AirPods up. And that's pretty much it as far as settings for phone calls go on the AirPods. The Jabras though, they do a bit more than just the basics. You can also hang up, you can also end the call, you can also answer calls, and you can mute yourself on phone calls, which of course is a fuckman must have. There's a couple of other things you can do as well, which we find really useful. So you can turn side tone off, so you can listen to your own voice and you don't sound like you're, half deaf shouting into your earbuds. Additionally, you can also change how the sound coming in sounds to you. So if it's too grating, you can turn down the treble or the bass. I found this really useful in certain situations. And the best part, of course, is that you can turn volume up or down on the buds without having to take your phone out. And you do that by long pressing on the right earbud to turn volume up and on the left earbud to turn volume down.
So speaking of presses, both of these buds are designed quite differently. The Jabras fit quite compactly in your ear, making it quite discreet looking and doesn't really stick out. And they come in a bunch of colors, whereas the AirPods Pro come in... So the buttons on the Jabra, very impressive because they're super clicky.
Yeah.
And you have one on each bud, and you can long press them to adjust volume controls, as Rowan just mentioned, but they can be uncomfortable since you're pushing the buds into your ear. So on the Jabras, you can adjust the ANC or the hear-through levels in the app while you're on a phone call. Although in our experience, this has been a bit buggy since when you're trying to adjust one, it just jumps to the other and vice versa. So hopefully this gets fixed in a software update. So with buttons, we always feel that they're easy to use and reliable, especially in the winter when you're wearing gloves. The only downside with the Jabras is the master-slave architecture. So what does that mean? You can't just pick up any of the buds and just use them.
Whereas in Apple, we don't believe in this master-slave architecture.
Who's we?
Either bud can be used on its own.
But there are no volume controls on the AirPods Pro, which is a huge miss, right?
Well, it's only a miss if you believe that one device should do everything. In the Apple ecosystem, we have different devices for different reasons. So I just use my $400 Apple Watch to control volume. Who needs it on your AirPods? Both the AirPods and the Jabras are IPX4 water and dust resistant, which means you can exercise with them or dance in the rain if that's what you like to do.
And you know that clogged up feeling, Ron?
Yeah, I don't know. It's been a couple of days and
What?
it's still
No. They don't need to know all of that. I'm talking about the clogged up feeling of in-ear buds.
Oh yeah, I hate that. Yeah, of course. You know what you're talking about. Unlike the human body, both the Jabra and the AirPods have a semi-open design which relieves pressure on your ears. Definitely makes a difference in comfort too.
All right, talking about in-ears and the fit and the comfort, let's just preface this by saying that all in-ears fit differently and all ears are different.
Personally, AirPods are one of the most comfortable buds I've ever used, but the Jabra Elite 85T are very, very close. I've used them for a couple of full work days now. Beginning in the morning, I've worn them through the day right up to the end without taking them off once. They're that comfortable. The AirPods are lighter and you feel them a little less in the ear, but somehow with the new oval-shaped ear gels on the 85T, Jabras, I dare say, are just as comfortable as the AirPods, and somehow the fit in my ear was a little bit more secure with the Jabras.
But Rowan, if you had to pick one of these for working out in, what would they be?
I don't know, it just feels like the Jabras are a bit more solid, so maybe I'd pick them because if they fell out, at least I have a feeling that they might take the beating better than the AirPods.
Yeah. And no, we're not going to drop test them.
Unless you support us on Patreon and join the DHRME army or something like that. Link in the description. So both these earbuds come with some nice extra features. First off, you can simply find your device using your phone. So I'll just demonstrate. I take the AirPods out, I put here, I go to find my device. If you've dropped your AirPods somewhere, you can hear them. So I'm playing the sound and I am playing the sound. Oh, okay, it says volume will be too loud because in my ear. So the idea of this demonstration was to prove that it doesn't work that great, the Find My feature. It's a bit hit and miss. Whereas on the 85Ts, you can see the last recorded location of your buds when they were used. So that's a useful feature. And you can also play a sound just like the AirPods. And in our tests, it worked quite well. So these are really like out there features. This is not the reason why you would buy these buds, but there's some really useful ones like Smart Pause, right? You just take your earbuds out of your ear and the music pauses. So if you have audio FOMO, that's a good one to have. And both of them also come with wireless charging.
And it can work with multiple devices too.
Whoa. You're not seriously comparing the Jabras with the magical integration of the AirPods across Apple's product range. And with the latest updates to the Apple operating systems, you can seamlessly switch devices. So if you're using your phone and you want to go to your laptop, the AirPods just switch on the fly. It's just like magical. And you know the thing with Apple is it just works. All right,
Apple fanboy. What about non-Apple devices?
Yeah, they just work like regular earbuds.
Yeah, and so the Jabra work on both Apple devices and non-Apple devices. Just make sure you pause audio on one device before playing them on the other one.
Another feature added by Apple in its latest software updates is spatial audio. So this basically gives you a real cool surround experience while you're listening to music. And of course, the source that you're watching needs to support this. So right now, only Apple TV, Disney Plus, and HBO Max are supported. But Netflix and Amazon Prime are not.
No. And I've tested this by watching Black Panther on Disney Plus. I've got to be honest, like the immersive experience is definitely something to write home about. I'm not sure how they did it with these tiny buds, but it's a pretty awesome experience. But who knows, at this rate, Jabra just might release a software update and say, you all get spatial audio as well.
Whether it's custom button presses, different sound settings for different situations, on-board EQ on the buds themselves, these are just some of the things that you can find in the Jabra Sound Plus app. And the best part, the app works like a charm. There is one little bug that we've noticed, but seeing as how the app has been stable even for the previous Jabra Elite 75Ts, we're confident that that will be fixed very soon. Compare that to the limited number of settings you get in the Apple operating systems for the AirPods Pro, and you can see why Jabra is a clear winner in this area. And Jabra can do this across operating systems. If you use your AirPods with a non-Apple operating system, you're stuck with what you get on board. Also, you have a ear tip test to see how well the seal fits in your ear. Jabra one-ups Apple there by having a whole MySound system where it customizes the sound profile based on your age, gender, and other variables like that.
So battery life on the AirPods Pro is 4.5 hours with ANC on, and for the Jabras it's 5.5 with ANC on. But in our testing, the Jabras lasted an hour more, so around 6.5 hours, with mixed usage with ANC and HearThrough. So on the Jabras, you feel this pressure change, or this low thump, every time you switch between ANC and HearThrough. So pitting the AirPods Pro against the Jabras, how did they fare in terms of ANC? For a flight cabin sound at a higher volume that we simulated, we could see that the AirPods Pros destroyed the Jabra 85Ts in terms of noise cancelling. The AirPods Pro can completely eliminate the low-end rumble, whereas on the Elite 85T, you could still hear it pretty clearly. In case of louder sounds without a lot of low frequencies like a vacuum cleaner, the AirPods Pro still did better than the Elite 85T, but the difference was a lot smaller. One thing to note is that on the Jabras, you can fine-tune the ANC and the HearThrough separately, whereas on the AirPods Pro, it's just two settings, ANC or transparency mode. And one more thing, for relatively quiet background voices, they both performed very similarly. So your use case will determine which earbuds you prefer. We tested this on the latest firmware, which is 1.16.0. So talking about sound quality. So we tested both of these buds using Tidal Masters. So when testing the Jabras connected to an Android with the AAC codec, we noticed that these buds get loud. 60% volume was already really loud in quiet environments. Now if we move on to how they sounded when connected to an iPhone, it was quite similar to Android, but they were much louder. So 50% connected to an iPhone was similar to 70% on an Android phone.
Both of them support similar codecs, SBC and AAC, so that's a level playing field. But when it comes to actual usage, they do sound quite different. And there's not a clear choice, let me explain, because when it came to real instruments, guitars, drums, and even vocals to some extent, I felt that the AirPods Pro did a better job of reproducing what that instrument would sound like in a room. Having been in a band myself, something like Greta Van Fleet or even something jazzy like Diana Krall, the instrument sounded much more true to life on the AirPods Pro. What was also different was that the AirPods Pro had kind of a wider soundstage in many of the songs that I tested. On the other hand, for things like EDM and dance, the punchy bass of the Jabra does stand out, and it does, if you're into that bass sound, I think you'll enjoy it a lot. And if you use the Jabra, you can of course EQ it on device, which means the EQ settings will be preserved no matter which device you're connected to. That's a really handy feature to have, which you don't actually have on the AirPods. I use this setting by turning the bass down a little bit, and that is what I enjoyed the most on the Jabras. But the neutral setting is in general a bit darker than the AirPods Pro, a bit more on the excited side maybe you could say. But there was something in the Jabras mid-treble that I don't particularly enjoy, but then again, you can kind of EQ that. So my choice for sound, purely for sound, would still be the AirPods Pro, but that is because of the kind of music I listen to. Your mileage may definitely vary. So where does that leave us? We were hoping that the Jabra Elite 85Ts would be AirPod killers, but given the ANC performance and the sound quality, at least for us right now, that's not true. But it's still not a very easy decision to make because the 85Ts exceed the AirPod Pros on quite a few counts. The ability to customize your sound, your experience, the great battery life, a sliding scale for ANC and a separate one for HearThrough, and the ability to connect to two devices simultaneously, be that Android or an Apple device. So is it as simple as Apple users should buy the AirPods and Android users should get the Jabra or something else? We don't think so, but we're curious to know what your conclusion is. Leave a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching.
You've been climbing out of the walled garden.
What? Yeah, and we've been the HRME. Namaste.
Namaste.